I hear it articulated when the people aren't certifiably low IQ'd or insane or undercover and working for the anti-whites. It comes from these guys who, because of this machismo, because they're not actually tough. They want to play like they're tough. You know who these guys are. They're dressing up in the camo every so many weekends, and they're going out and they're using, the cork to smear black on their faces. And they never talk about any victimization because that just shows weakness. They're idiots. They are idiots. And I've been telling them that for years. And not one of them has ever shown me with any sort of intellectual breakdown how it is intelligent to never talk about your community's victimization. When I can make arguments all day long about the success of other communities who talk about the victimization that is inflicted on their peoples and how that drives them together, how that causes them to think of themselves as a people. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So some usually beer-bellied loser chugging beer and talking about how you should never talk about how we've been victimized. You shouldn't listen to a word that such an idiot is saying as he rocks in his easy chair. You should absolutely be talking about every single incident of victimization of our people. There is nothing on planet Earth that welds a people more tightly together. For God's sake, these idiots in their camo, hitting the cork with that lighter so they can paint up their faces. These idiots think they know everything there is to know about a certain small group of people. And what do they say about that small group of people and how united they are, how effectively they work together? They say, oh, well, all they ever talk about is how victimized. They have the longest memories. They remember every victimization. There should be a lesson there, dumbass. There should be a lesson for you, but your IQ is too low to figure it out. Your manhood is too little to admit that our people have been victimized, to admit that we have been defeated. There is nothing more unmanly than to pretend that you are still on top, striding the world, than to pretend that our people are still sitting on top of this world, that we went from continent to continent. And there was nothing, everybody that came against us, every people, every element of nature, every hazard before us, that nothing could stop us. There's nothing less manly than to pretend that we still control any of that. It is foolhardy in the extreme to pretend that we haven't been struck by the viper's daggers. A hero can win every battle, can win every fight, can be the smartest, can be the toughest, can have the longest endurance. And that pit viper can still hit him from the hedge. And that is what has happened to our people. And part of the problem is that we have guys like this. They're guys, they're not men. They play men. They get great big trucks with great big tires. And not everybody who has a great big truck and great big tires is one of these guys. So don't misunderstand. I love nothing more than a jacked up truck that you can really tear up some hills with, mud bogging. But these guys, who I'm talking about. And they come in slightly different variations in our different countries. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. These guys who want to pretend that we absolutely cannot have any harm inflicted on us because we are the best or whatever it is. Bravo Sierra. And that's what this tolerant left is doing here. Tolerant left wants you to not talk about our victimization by anti-whites. Why would an anti-white want you to not talk about it if it wasn't effective? The anti-whites don't want you to talk about our victimization because it is effective. So when they try to mock you and say, oh, you got the victim mentality, that's them admitting to you, ladies and gentlemen, that's them saying to you, please don't talk about all the harm we're causing you. Please don't talk about all of the victimization we are causing your people, your babies, your young children, your countries. Please don't talk about the white erasure. Please don't talk about all of this, because we know it's awful. We know that it will weld you together as a people. We know that it will piss you off. We know that it will animate you. We know that it will galvanize you. Please don't talk about it. That's what Tolerant Left is saying when he's trying to mock you out of talking about our victimization. So I wrote back to Tolerant Left, and I wrote, LOL, spoken like a true anti-white. Mock our objections to victimization. Why not just admit you are anti-white rather than make this pathetic and cowardly argument to hide behind? Just own that you are anti-white, because you're not going to stop me from talking about the harm you inflict on my people. That was my response. That could be a response that you use to the anti-whites when they say something like this to you. So after a couple days, I guess, of thinking of how he should respond, Tolerant Left, or she should respond, or it should respond, Tolerant Left finally writes back, says, no white guilt. I am anti-white. What's your point? Well, my point is victory. That's my point. Do you see how I just won that conversation? Do you see how I just won that argument? Now we know. Now everyone reading this knows. Now everyone hearing this knows what that name that this anti-white vermin chose for him or herself or itself, Tolerant Left, was meant just to deceive you, so that you could be deceived long enough and the harm inflicted long enough that there is no retaliation, that there is no recapturing of your destiny, that there is no defense. That this argument that Tolerant Left is making, that you have such a victim mentality, reveals it for what it is. That he or she or it doesn't want you talking about our victimization for all of the aforementioned reasons. So I wrote back to Tolerant Left, well done. See, that was not so hard. Now you don't have to hide behind pathetic, pretextual arguments. That is where you need to corner your anti-white interlocutors. He or she or it just came away from that conversation the loser. No longer is Tolerant Left on some artificially constructed high ground, preaching down to me about how awful I am. No, now we know that Tolerant Left is nothing but a cretin from the dirty hollows in the streets that has slinked out of that den to inflict harm on us. Now we know what Tolerant Left is all about, and everybody reading that does too. And if you have a conversation these coming holidays, friends, family, or strangers are around, and an anti-white tries to put you in this position, you can handle it just exactly this way. And everybody who hears will suddenly, their whole interpretation of what's taking place, of you being somehow the immoral party and the anti-white being the moral party, will shift. And it is the shift that means we are recapturing our destiny. Don't ever overlook the power of that shift. All of these people talking about, like I had a question during the podcast, shouldn't we focus on projecting power? This is projecting power. Buying a bunch of guns and posing in pictures like a twit, like a gelded twit, is not power. This is power. When you flip the script on the anti-whites, that is power.